Hey everyone! Today we're diving into the quirky, ambitious, and occasionally eyebrow-free world of medieval daily life. Back then, beauty wasn't about glowing skin or gym-toned muscles. No, the ideal look was somewhere between ethereal saint and didn't get enough sleep, but in a holy way. Before we get started, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I'm doing here. And in the comments, tell me where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I love seeing this little community connect from all over the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's settle in for today's journey together. Close your eyes and congratulations, you're alive. The bad news? It's the year 1325, and that's about the only thing you have going for you. You wake up on what can generously be described as a bed, a sagging sack of straw that hasn't been fluffed since the last good harvest. It smells like damp hay, wet dog, and faintly like something died in here months ago. Which, frankly, it might have. Your blanket? One coarse wool sheet, stiff with grime and as welcoming as an itchy burlap sack. The first sound you hear is the clang of the church bell, the medieval alarm clock. No snooze button. No soft chime. Just a slab of iron screaming at you to repent before breakfast. You try to stretch, but immediately regret it. Your back aches like you've been wrestling a mule in your sleep. Your knees pop like kindling. You're 22, which in this century makes you basically middle-aged. And then there's the smell. Oh, the smell. It's an orchestra of stale sweat, yesterday's ale, barnyard musk, and something in the corner that you really hope is mold. Welcome to your new home, a one-room wooden hut you share with your entire family, and the pig, and several chickens. Privacy? That's for lords. Here you are never alone. You rise carefully, not for your dignity, which doesn't exist, but to avoid stepping barefoot into the mystery puddle by the hearth. Your breath fogs in the icy air. The embers in the fire pit are little more than a dying glow, barely keeping the darkness at bay. And as the first rays of pale sunlight creep through a gap in the wall, you realize this isn't a nightmare. This is life. And you've got to survive the day. For centuries. Here, you and 20 of your new best friends make direct eye contact while doing the least social thing imaginable. Toilet paper? Forget it. You've got straw, rags, moss, or, if you're feeling fancy, a piece of wool. And let's just say there's a reason handshakes aren't big yet. Stomach growling? Time for breakfast. And by breakfast, I mean a culinary cry for help. There's no sizzling bacon. No fluffy pancakes. No coffee because no one has invented coffee here yet, and honestly, that might be the worst part. Instead, you get pottage, a gloopy, gray-brown stew of grains, root vegetables, and whatever else didn't rot over the winter. It's been simmering in the same pot for days, maybe weeks, with new ingredients dumped on top whenever available. Think of it less as a recipe and more as an ongoing science experiment. On the side, a hunk of bread so hard it could stop an arrow. It's made of coarse rye or barley flour and usually bulked up with sawdust, acorns, or other creative fillers. You don't cut this bread. You negotiate with it. To drink? Beer. Yes, even the kids. Not because it's fun, but because the water will kill you. The ale is weak, liquid bread, really, but at least it won't give you cholera. Dreaming of cheese? Meat? Fresh fruit? Keep dreaming. Meat happens maybe a few times a year. Cheese is a luxury. And spices? Forget it. A pinch of pepper costs more than your monthly wages. You eat in silence, mostly because chewing this bread takes your full attention. Now for the glamorous medieval wardrobe change. Except, plot twist, you only own one outfit. It's a rough wool tunic, stiff with age and scented like a compost pile. Underwear? If you're lucky. Shoes? Maybe a pair of sad, untreated leather things that offer the same arch support as a wet pancake. Washing your clothes? Hilarious. That means hauling water from a freezing well, boiling it over a fire, and scrubbing your tunic with ashes until your fingers bleed. So you just keep wearing them. Every day. Until they disintegrate. Oh, and your body? Itches constantly. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs live rent-free on everyone, peasants, nobles, monks. You'll scratch your armpit with a wooden spoon while talking to the priest, and no one will even bat an eye. Thinking about brushing your teeth? Don't. The concept hasn't been invented yet. Your oral hygiene routine consists of chewing a twig, if you're fancy. By your mid-20s, your teeth look like a haunted graveyard. Toothaches? Constant. And there's no dentist. Only barber surgeons, who double as medieval mouth mechanics. Yes, the same guy who trims your hair will yank out your molar with iron tongs by candlelight, zero anesthesia. Infections? No antibiotics. If your gums swell and the fever starts, say your prayers. Sepsis kills faster than the plague. And now to the fields. Because you are a peasant. Your job, survive. You farm land owned by a lord who wouldn't recognize you if you were on fire in his courtyard. From sunup to sundown, you dig, sow, reap, and haul water until your back feels like a pretzel. If you're a woman, you also cook, clean, spin wool, raise the kids, and keep your husband's lice from migrating to your side of the bed. Children? They start working at 5. No toys. No school. Just a smaller rake and dreams of maybe not dying of the flu. The work never ends. It's 6 days a week, every week. Sunday is rest, but rest usually means more chores or more praying. The seasons don't care about you. Winter means sleeping in all your clothes in a one-room house with a dying fire and hoping frostbite doesn't eat your toes. Summer means working under a blazing sun in layers of wool because showing too much skin is scandalous, and also because the flies are vicious. There's no air conditioning, no central heating, no insulation. Just you versus the elements. And spoiler, the elements usually win. And that was just the morning. By now your body aches. You're hungry again. And you're only halfway through a day that will end with more pottage, more chores, and maybe, if you're lucky, the sweet release of sleep on that lumpy straw mattress, if the fleas let you. This is medieval life. Not glamorous. Not noble. Just survival, with a side of rats. The sun is sinking now, and your workday, if we can call it a day, and not a slow-motion death march, is ending. The sky glows a bruised orange behind the distant trees, and the air smells faintly of smoke, manure, and boiled turnips. You walk back toward your hut, back muscles screaming, hands raw from the plow, stomach gnawing at itself. And yet you're not done. The night has its own chores. First, you bank the fire. The hearth is the beating heart of your home, the only thing standing between you and freezing solid. Letting it die overnight? That's not an inconvenience. That's an invitation to death. So you kneel by the embers, raking them into a little glowing mound, then smothering them under a blanket of ash. It's a delicate art. Too much ash, and you'll snuff it out. Too little, and the cold will sneak in and kill it while you sleep. In some families, fire-tending secrets are passed down like heirlooms. Use dry ash only, says one elder. No, keep it damp, swears another. Medieval survival, by way of small, smoky arguments. Around you, the hut comes alive. Your mother fusses over the pottage pot, scraping the sides for every last bit. Your siblings are dragging in more straw for the bedding. The pig, sensing it's bedtime, grunts its way into the warmest corner by the fire. And you? You take stock of your treasures: one chipped wooden bowl, a scratchy cloak, and a small pouch of barley that needs to last the week. If anyone robs you tonight, they'll leave disappointed. Dinner is familiar, because it's pottage again. Always pottage. Always with that faintly sour smell of a stew that's been gently aging for weeks. You gnaw on the same rock-hard bread you had for breakfast. If you're lucky, a scrap of salt pork made its way into the pot. You don't complain. The idea of variety is reserved for nobles and their ridiculous feasts. You drink more ale. It's safer than the water, and at least it dulls the constant low-level ache in your joints. You might be thinking, surely now we clean up? Oh, sweet summer child. Bathing is rare, and in winter, downright dangerous. People genuinely believe that washing too often opens your pores and lets disease in. So instead, you scrape some grime off your face with a rag dipped in cold water, trying not to think about the fact that this water came from the same stream where someone dumped a dead goat last week. If you're feeling extra fancy, you might rinse your hands in a little vinegar. Congratulations, you're now as clean as medieval science believes is necessary. Finally, at long last, it's time to sleep. Or at least, to attempt it. Here's the thing, medieval people don't sleep like we do. They practice something called segmented sleep, 2 separate chunks of rest, divided by a strange, wakeful watch period. After dinner, everyone piles onto the straw mattress. You drift off as the fire crackles low and the winter wind moans through the thatch. This is first sleep, a few hours of heavy, exhausted slumber, deep enough to forget how much your body hurts. But then, sometime around midnight you wake. Everyone does. And here begins the watch, a 1 to 2 hour limbo between sleeps. You sit up in the darkness. The embers glow faintly. Around you, your family stirs, some mumbling prayers, some tending the fire, some just staring into the dark, listening for wolves or raiders. This is the time for quiet things. For whispered gossip, for mending clothes by candlelight, for, well, intimacy. Medieval physicians actually recommended this as the ideal time for it. Apparently nothing says romance like 2 hours of groggy, half-lit medieval multitasking. When the watch ends, you settle back into the straw, nestling close to whoever is warmest. And so begins second sleep, a lighter, dream-filled doze that carries you into dawn. Your mattress is a pallet, a sack of straw that crunches and shifts every time you move. If your family had more money, maybe you'd sleep on a wooden frame. But you don't. The straw harbors fleas, lice, and the occasional mouse. You scratch absent-mindedly, knowing there's no escape. Even nobles with feather beds can't avoid the insects. Everyone sleeps in their clothes, layers upon layers of wool, stiff with sweat and smoke. Pajamas? Not a thing. The same tunic you wore to work is the same one you sleep in, the same one you'll wear tomorrow. And then there's the company. On the coldest nights, your entire household, parents, siblings, maybe a visiting cousin, piles into one bed. Even the dog curls up near your feet, radiating warmth. If you're lucky, you get a middle spot, shielded by other bodies. If not, you're on the edge, freezing and praying you don't roll into the draft. Sometimes there's livestock. Chickens roosting on rafters. A pig in the corner. Maybe even a cow if the night is brutal enough. It's loud. It smells. But it keeps you alive. Before closing your eyes you pray. Not for good dreams, though those would be nice, but for a good death. Because in this world, night is dangerous. Illness, fire, raiders, all could visit before dawn. So you whisper your soul into God's hands and hope you wake up still breathing. And if you dream, that's no small thing. Medieval people believe dreams are messages from God, from saints, or from the devil himself. A dream of fire might mean hell. A dream of water? Cleansing or drowning. Better confess it just in case. This is medieval night. Claustrophobic. Smoky. Alive with whispers, prayers, and the faint scratching of pests in the straw. You drift off into second sleep, the pigs snoring softly, the embers glowing low. Tomorrow will be exactly the same, if you're lucky enough to see it. You drift into second sleep, fleas biting at your ankles, the pigs sighing softly, the fire barely holding back the dark. But the night isn't just for sleeping. Even as your body curls deeper into the straw, your mind stirs. Dreams in this world are more than strange nighttime movies. They are messages, warnings, sometimes even weapons. Medieval people believe dreams carry weight, glimpses of the divine or traps laid by the devil himself. A dream of fire? Could be hell's smoke curling into your soul. A dream of water? Cleansing, or a premonition of drowning. A dream of feasting? Perhaps God reminding you to fast, or a demon tempting you toward gluttony. Theologians write entire treatises decoding these nightly messages. Some dreams are so alarming that people wake, confess them, and fast for days just in case. Monks record theirs in journals, passing them to superiors for interpretation. And then there are the truly terrifying dreams, the ones whispered to be sent by incubi or succubi, demons said to invade sleepers' bodies. It's no wonder prayers are whispered before bed. To medieval people, even sleep isn't safe. You roll over, scratching absently at a flea bite, muttering a quick, "Deliver us from evil," under your breath. Just in case. Now imagine tonight isn't in your hut at all. Maybe you're traveling, a rare but sometimes necessary ordeal. The pilgrim roads are cold and dangerous, littered with thieves, wolves, and worse. You find an inn, if you can call it that. It's more barn than hotel, a creaking timber building that smells of smoke, ale, and too many unwashed bodies in too small a space. Forget private rooms. Forget clean sheets. You get a spot in a bed that's already occupied by 1, 2, maybe 3 strangers. Snoring? Constant. Fleas? Guaranteed. Theft? A given, unless you sleep with your purse tied to your waist. Some inns separate men from women, or sort lodgers by trade, smiths with smiths, clergy with clergy. But mostly it's first come, first crammed. You lie there in the dark, listening to someone cough on the next pallet, and someone else mutter prayers in their sleep. You clutch your belongings, hoping to wake with both your dignity and your shoes. Congratulations. You've survived the medieval travel experience. And if you were a monk, your night would look even stranger. In monasteries, dozens of brothers sleep in vast dormitories, neat rows of wooden planks covered with straw mats. There are no pillows, no curtains, no pajamas. You sleep in your habit, fully dressed, because when the bell tolls for matins, the first prayer service of the day, you're expected to rise in an instant. At some unholy hour, the bell rings. You shuffle silently with the others to the chapel, chanting psalms by candlelight, the echo of your voices mixing with the distant howl of winter wind. Some monks even sleep sitting up, believing that lying flat tempts sinful dreams. In these stone-walled sanctuaries, sleep isn't for comfort. It's for discipline. No matter where you are, peasant hut, roadside inn, monastic dormitory, the dark itself is feared. In this world, night belongs to more than just wolves. It belongs to ghosts, demons, and restless souls. People tell stories of travelers snatched by shadowy figures on lonely roads, of witches flying beneath the moon, of spirits slipping silently into homes through the cracks in the walls. You don't light candles frivolously. Wax is expensive. You don't wander outside unless you must. And when the dog growls at something unseen beyond the door, you pull the blankets tighter and whisper another prayer. This is medieval night. A living thing, breathing with the sighs of family and livestock, shivering in the drafts that creep through every crack, alive with the hum of prayers, fears, and dreams. You curl deeper into the straw, fleas still nipping, the pig's breath warming your toes, and the fire barely glowing in the hearth. Tomorrow will come, the same as today, if you live to see it. And so the night passes. You, the peasant, dream your small dreams, of full bellies, of warm summers, of a life that doesn't hurt quite so much. And when the dawn finally comes, you rise, put on the same scratchy tunic, and face the same fields, the same hunger, the same survival game you've been playing since birth. But not everyone wakes to straw and smoke. Somewhere else, in a world so far removed it may as well be another planet, another woman wakes, but not to mud floors and the sigh of a pig at her feet. She wakes in a palace. Her name, at least for now, is Sophie of Anhalt-Zerbst, a German princess from an unremarkable little backwater, born into the minor nobility of the Holy Roman Empire. But history won't remember her as Sophie. History will remember her as Catherine the Great. It's the 18th century now. A different world. But the game? The game hasn't changed. In this era, survival doesn't mean avoiding frostbite in a hut. It means navigating palace intrigue. It means playing politics so sharply you don't just survive, you win. And Sophie? She will win bigger than almost anyone in history. Let's step into her shoes. She's young, clever, ambitious, dangerously so. At 14, she's already learning that in the world she inhabits, a woman's value is her utility. She isn't born powerful. She must make herself powerful. Her family? Cash poor but pedigree rich. Her mother, pragmatic, shrewd, sometimes cruel, sees opportunity in marrying Sophie into the Russian royal family. Russia at this time is a strange, sprawling beast, a country trying desperately to look like Europe while still clutching its medieval soul. And at its center sits the Empress Elizabeth, childless and aging, looking for a wife for her awkward, dull, occasionally violent heir, Peter III. Elizabeth chooses Sophie. So Sophie leaves everything, her country, her language, her childhood, and travels to Russia, a land of endless winters and glittering, treacherous courts. She converts to Orthodoxy, taking a new name, Catherine. She embraces Russian culture more eagerly than her German-born husband ever will. Peter, for his part, despises her. He's petulant, infantile, more interested in toy soldiers than his wife. Their marriage is loveless. Worse, it's dangerous, because Catherine's entire existence now depends on producing an heir. But Catherine? She doesn't just survive this humiliation. She studies. She reads. She charms. She builds alliances in a court where alliances are the difference between a throne and a grave. She begins quietly reshaping herself into something formidable. And then fate gives her a chance. Elizabeth dies. Peter becomes emperor, and proves himself spectacularly unfit. He insults the church. He alienates the nobility. He openly admires Frederick of Prussia, Russia's sworn enemy. It doesn't take long for whispers to become conspiracies. And at the heart of those conspiracies? Catherine. With the backing of the military and key nobles, she stages a coup. It's swift, bloodless. Peter flees, and within days he's dead. Officially of natural causes. Unofficially? Let's just say Catherine didn't cry too hard at the funeral. At 33 years old, Catherine seizes the throne. Not as a regent. Not as a placeholder. As Empress of Russia. This would already make a hell of a story. A foreign girl, despised by her husband, outmaneuvering one of the most dangerous courts in Europe. But Catherine doesn't stop at survival. She transforms Russia. She expands its borders through war and diplomacy. She reforms its administration, dragging its laws and schools into something resembling the Enlightenment. She sponsors art, literature, and philosophy, corresponding with Voltaire like an equal. Does she solve everything? No. She keeps serfdom intact, because dismantling it would topple the very nobility who support her. She uses Enlightenment ideals like a scalpel, carefully, selectively, never enough to cut her own power. But Catherine the Great changes Russia forever. And so we zoom out. From your straw pallet in a one-room hut to the gilded halls of the Winter Palace. From surviving the night to reshaping an empire. The same darkness spans both worlds, the same fears, the same prayers, the same human desperation. But where you dreamed of bread and warmth, Catherine dreamed of power. And unlike most, she didn't just dream it. She took it. The world doesn't end with a bang. For Frida, it ends with a sound like splintering wood and tearing metal, a scream of steel as the bus folds in on itself. She doesn't even have time to think. Just the smell of dust and blood, the weightless moment where pain hasn't arrived yet, and then, impact. When she wakes, she isn't Frida Kahlo, the girl who danced in the streets of Coyoacán, who laughed too loud, who outran every expectation of what a polite girl should be. She's something broken. September 17, 1925. She is 18. A streetcar plows into her bus. A metal handrail drives through her body like a spear. Her spine shatters. Her pelvis cracks. Her leg breaks in more places than doctors can count. They don't expect her to live. But Frida Kahlo doesn't do what's expected. She survives. She survives the endless surgeries, the plaster corsets, the smell of antiseptic that clings to her like a second skin. She survives months in bed, staring at the same ceiling until she decides to paint it in her mind. This is when the world gets its first glimpse of the Frida Kahlo who will one day become legend. Because Frida doesn't just endure pain. She transforms it. Confined to her bed, she takes up painting. Her mother fits a mirror above her so she can see herself. And so begins one of the most unflinching acts of self-creation in art history. Self-portraits. Not the dainty, flattering kind of a debutante. These are confrontations. Frida staring at herself as if to say, "So, this is who you are now. Look." She paints her pain. She paints her broken body, her corsets, her surgeries, her miscarriages. She paints herself as a deer pierced by arrows, as a shattered column barely holding itself together, as a woman split in two, bleeding onto the canvas. Her art is raw, surreal, defiant, the opposite of the polite murals Mexico's male painters are making in the name of the revolution. While Diego Rivera paints sweeping walls of workers and peasants, Frida paints the inside of her own skin. Ah, Diego. If Frida's body is a battlefield, then Diego Rivera is the war that rages through it. He's Mexico's most famous painter, huge, loud, brilliant, and unfaithful as the sunrise. He's 20 years older, twice her size, and has a gravitational pull Frida cannot resist. They marry in 1929. Frida is 22. Diego calls it the marriage of an elephant and a dove. But this is no fairy tale. Diego cheats. Often. Sometimes with women Frida knows. Sometimes with her own sister. Frida cheats back. With men, with women, with the same burning hunger for life that makes her art vibrate. And yet, they cannot quit each other. They fight. They leave. They come back. They paint each other into their canvases. Frida as Diego's adored muse, Diego as the totem carved into Frida's heart. It is love. It is hell. It is survival. Frida is not just a painter. She is a revolutionary in every sense. She wears Tehuana dresses, traditional Mexican clothing, as armor, transforming herself into a living canvas of national identity. She flirts with communism, entertains Leon Trotsky in her home, and turns her house into a salon for artists, poets, and political exiles. She uses her pain like a weapon, daring the world to look at her scars, her gender, her identity, her Mexico, on her own terms. By the end, Frida's body is collapsing. Her right leg is amputated. The pain is constant, but she paints through it. Her last public appearance? In a wheelchair, at her own exhibition, grinning like she has defied the universe one last time. Her diary entry before her death in 1954. I hope the exit is joyful, and I hope never to return. Frida dies at 47. But her paintings live. Her face, unibrowed, unflinching, crowned with flowers, becomes an icon. Her work, once dismissed as too personal, too strange, too feminine, becomes universal. Frida Kahlo made her body a battlefield, and in doing so, she made herself immortal. Pause, the tone settles, letting the audience breathe. Her story, like Catherine's, is about survival. But not through thrones or armies. Through art. Through the unrelenting honesty of turning pain into beauty. In 1994, deep in the humid jungles of Chiapas, Mexico, a group of archaeologists descend into the darkness. They aren't looking for gold or treasure. They're chasing ghosts. The Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque, a grand Mayan funerary pyramid, has already given up one of its dead, Palenque the Great, a ruler entombed in jade and glory. But beneath the temple, another crypt waits. Sealed. Silent. Untouched for more than 1,000 years. When they break through, the air is heavy, the kind of stale, suffocating air that hasn't been breathed since the world was a different place. Inside, they find a sarcophagus. And when they open it, the past stares back. She is covered in cinnabar, bright red mercury sulfide, staining her bones like blood that never dried. The powder has preserved her in a strange, almost sacred glow. They call her La Reina Roja, the Red Queen. Beside her are offerings, jade beads, carved shells, fragments of a once lavish headdress. And on her skull, faint traces of the elaborate cranial shaping the Maya reserved for their elite. This was no ordinary burial. But who was she? Scholars begin their work. They measure her bones, studying the wear on her teeth, the curve of her spine. She was between 50 and 60 years old when she died, unusually long-lived for the era. Radiocarbon dating places her death around 600 to 700 C. She was buried with the honors of royalty. But there is no inscription, no glyph, no name to tell them who she was. The Maya were meticulous record keepers, but for this woman, silence. The first theory? She was Palenque's wife. Palenque the Great, the ruler who transformed Palenque into one of the jewels of the Mayan world, died in 683 C. Could this woman be his queen, Lady Tiziacbuajal? The timeline fits. So does the lavishness of her burial. But archaeologists need more than educated guesses. DNA analysis offers a partial answer. The Red Queen is not related to Palenque by blood. This rules out some family possibilities but leaves the door open for her to be his consort. Some push other theories. Perhaps she was a mother, a high priestess, even a ruler in her own right, a forgotten queen whose name has been lost to the jungle and time. Each new piece of evidence brings more questions than answers. Even the cinnabar coating her bones tells a story. To the Maya, cinnabar wasn't just a pigment. It was sacred, a symbol of life, blood, and rebirth. To cover a body in it was to prepare them for a divine journey, to seal them in the eternal red of the afterlife. And yet, cinnabar is also toxic. Archaeologists working in the tomb had to wear protective suits, knowing that breathing it could slowly poison them. Did the Mayan know? Perhaps. Perhaps not. But in death, the Red Queen became more than a person. She became a ritual object, an offering, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. Decades later, her identity remains an enigma. Her bones whisper some truths, that she lived a long life, that she was cherished, that she held power. But her name? Lost. Perhaps it was carved on wood that has rotted away. Perhaps it was deliberately erased. Perhaps, and this is the cruelest possibility, she was never meant to be remembered as an individual at all, only as a role, queen, consort, mother. We can reconstruct her face, drape her in virtual jade, give her the title, Red Queen. But we can't give her back her name. And so she lies in her tomb, her bones still stained red, her story half told. To walk through Palenque today is to feel her presence. In the stone corridors where the air tastes of age and moss. In the carved glyphs that speak of kings and wars but omit her. In the eerie, quiet power of a woman whose memory refuses to be fully erased. The Red Queen remains what she was in life and death, a mystery, carved into history not with words but with silence. History is full of them. Women like the Red Queen. Names half erased. Stories left unfinished. But sometimes, even silence speaks. The night has ended. In the medieval hut, a peasant rises, scratching, shivering, already aching from the day that hasn't even begun. She dreams no grand dreams. Her victories are small, a full belly, a surviving child, a fire that didn't go out. She endures, because that's what she's been taught to do. Far away in time, in a world of gold-lined halls and jeweled crowns, Catherine the Great wakes. She doesn't dream of surviving. She dreams of ruling, of reshaping an empire, of writing herself into the spine of history. And she does. Through steel and wit and relentless will, she drags Russia into a new age. Centuries later, a woman with a broken spine paints herself into being. Frida Kahlo, turning pain into color, using a brush the way others use prayers or knives. Her canvases are open wounds, yes, but also battle flags. She shows us that survival can be an act of defiance, an art form in itself. And in a tomb in the Mexican jungle, the Red Queen sleeps. A woman once powerful, now silent. Her name lost, her face forgotten. And yet, her presence endures. In the dust, in the cinnabar, in the questions that pull scholars deeper into her story. What ties them together? Survival. Whether in the mud, the palace, the studio, or the crypt, each of these women, the nameless and the immortalized, faced a world that wanted to define them, to confine them, to erase them. And each, in her own way, left a mark. Some through living, some through ruling, some through art, some through the mystery of their very absence. History isn't made only by kings and wars and dates carved into stone. It's made in beds of straw, in palace coups, in paint-splattered bedrooms, in silent tombs sealed in red dust. It's made by the forgotten and the famous, the suffering and the triumphant, all woven together into this strange, endless fabric we call the past. And as you drift now, away from their huts, their palaces, their studios, their tombs, perhaps you see yourself in them. The quiet persistence of the peasant, the ambition of Catherine, the raw, unflinching honesty of Frida, the unanswered mystery of the Red Queen, each a reflection, each a thread. The fire burns low. The halls grow silent. The paint dries. The tomb sleeps. And time, relentless and patient, carries them all forward, into memory, into story, into us. And now, I believe you're already drifting off, so just let the soft crackle of the fire carry you into the sweetest dreams.